It is the subsidies which reduce the prices, it is not Walmart which reduces the prices. That's something which we must understand. The second argument is that the middleman will go away once Walmart comes into play. Middleman is somebody who is between the producer and the consumer. Walmart is not a consumer. Walmart is actually a big middleman which eats away the smaller middleman. You know, it's like a big fish which eats away the small fish. Now, what happens in America? There are studies which show that before 1950, the average income that an American farmer, when he goes to sell his produce and sells his produce for $1, 70 cents was his income, which means 70%. In 2005, that income has come down to 4 cents, 4%. I thought if the Walmart has succeeded in removing the middleman, the income of the farmer actually should have gone up. Am I right? But on the contrary, we find the income has gone down drastically, you know, from 70% to 4%. Why is it? Because now there is a new battery of middlemen which operate under the same hat. You know, earlier it would be a middleman would be like me, wearing a kurta or a pajama or dhoti and a kurta, you know, in India. And so you take it, you know that he's a middleman. But now they come suited, booted with tie and with driving their Corollas or whatever. And you don't realize that they're middlemen, but they are under the same hub. They are the quality controllers, standardizers, certification agency person, the processor, the retailers, all these fellows, they are the ones who walk away with the farmer's pocket. And because the profits of farmers have gone down, those countries have realized that it is not possible for the farmers to survive from agriculture, so they are providing direct income support to those farmers. It's not only happening in America, it's also happening in Europe, where Tesco, Sainsbury, Carrefour, all these have been the major players along with Walmart in many countries. And we normally would believe that because of this, the income of the farmer is going up. You will be surprised, ladies and gentlemen, that despite all these companies operating in Europe, Europe is the biggest provider of agriculture subsidies all over. And despite the massive subsidies also, which is basically cornered by the corporations and the rich farmers, every minute one farmer quits agriculture. If Carrefour, Tesco's and Walmart's were providing so much of profit to the farmers, I see no reason why European farmers should be quitting agriculture despite also getting direct income support from the government. So it is very obvious that it's a failed model in America and Europe which we are trying to bring into India in the garb of saying that it will provide massive opportunities for the farmers. In agriculture, the other argument is that wastage of food. So you have seen on the television food rotting in this country and so on. So we have been told that 40% food goes waste. I don't know who did this analysis. But nevertheless, even if you accept that, the argument is when Walmart comes into it, it will provide you the structures, the supply chain, providing the cold chain and the bigger storage houses and so on. In America, does Walmart do the job? Nobody has ever looked into it. It is not Walmart's responsibility to provide for storage in America. In America, the storage is provided by either Cargill, ADM, or it's a ship companies, which are the trading companies, great trading companies. It's not the job of Walmart to provide storage. In fact, if you look at the back-end storages that they talk about, it has, at least I don't know of any country where they have provided that. But nevertheless, there is an argument that it will help get rid of a crisis situation in agriculture. Now move on to the other situation of creating employment. Anand Sharma goes on saying that we'll have crores of jobs now being created. I don't know. He could say 2 crores also. Who cares? You can go on making statements. But the fact of the matter is, let's again compare Walmart with the Indian retail sector. The Indian retail sector, ironically, is worth about $400 billion plus. That's the turnover. The Walmart's turnover is also $420 billion plus, the annual turnover of Walmart. Now, how many people does Walmart employ to reach that figure of $420 billion or plus that figure? You'll be surprised, it's just 21 lakh people. That's the population, so that's the employment they have created, 21 lakh people. And how much is the employment in India? The retail sector, 4.4 crore. Now please tell me, which is the bigger employer? Is it the Indian retail sector or is it the Walmart? When Walmart comes into India, it's definitely, they're going to have some jobs. They'll create one job, but in the process, how many jobs they take out is something that Planning Commission has never told us. And the minister. And also it's very surprising. India is the only country that I know of, I stand corrected if you know any other country, where one minister has been assigned the job to get approval for Walmart for the last 3 years. Anand Sharma is the minister who's only been with only one job: convince the chief minister, convince everybody, build up the atmosphere in the country on getting approval for FBI detail. Why should that happen? I wish there was a minister who was supposed to be assigned a job for removing hunger for the last 3 years. And I'm sure much of the hunger would have been removed by now. But look at the priorities of this country. We are more concerned about Walmart. Nobody is concerned about fighting hunger in this country, whereas everything is supposed to trickle down to remove poverty and hunger. Now, having said this, so the entire FDI debate that we see in this country is of course bordering on creating that myth and the hype, so that and today the media doesn't ask questions anymore, so you can get away with anything that you say. But I remember some years back at a conference in Berlin, a World Bank expert was trying to explain to us that in America and Europe, we have learned that the best way to develop agriculture, and I think this is Planning Commission's argument also here in India, is to shift the subsidies to rural infrastructure. You know, laying out roads, laying out storages, laying out electricity things and so on and so forth for the rural infrastructure, getting the rural infrastructure. So his advice to developing countries was that since these subsidies in America and Europe are non-trade distorting, if you have followed the debate on WTO and FTAs, these subsidies are non-trade distorting. What is trade distorting are the indirect subsidies that we provide to our farmers: cheaper power, cheaper water, and cheaper seed and cheaper fertilizer. These subsidies are trade distorting, whereas the direct income support you give to farmers in America or Europe is non-trade distorting. But anyway, having accepted that definition in our trade negotiations, I asked a question to him. I said, sir, if it is true that developing countries must move on from removing those agriculture subsidies, shift the agriculture subsidy to providing rural infrastructure, invest there, then please tell me, I have a question for you. I think Europe has already laid out a massive rural infrastructure. I'm sure those of us who have traveled to Europe know that there's everything that you can call for available in Europe, in the rural areas. So I said, if that is already available, please tell me, why is Europe giving the biggest amount of subsidy to its farmers? And as expected, the man said, I think it's time for lunch now, and let's meet and talk over lunch. So it's very obvious, they give a prescription to us, and then when I come here, I realize Montek Singh Ahluwalia making this same statement. And I countered him, I sent him an email, which he responded to me also very politely, and I said, your statement, whatever you have said, is actually what has been presented in the Berlin conference. And I want to tell you that it only shows me that whatever you are doing at the insistence of the World Bank. He, of course, didn't agree with me. That's fine. But the point I'm trying to make is, if you look at the World Bank documents goes a step further. It says that a country like India should also be, as the Prime Minister says, moving its population from the rural to the urban areas in India. And it says that those people who are in agriculture today, and the younger people in agriculture, are actually unskilled. They're unskilled, they don't know anything except for farming. So when you move out this population into the urban areas, you need to teach them how to become industrial workers, industrial laborers. So therefore, there is a need for setting up a number of institutes in India to train these people to become industrial workers. And I wasn't surprised, this was the 2008 World Development Report which said this, and subsequently in 2009, Chidambaram, as the last budget of his, as the previous finance minister, he made an allocation for setting up 1,000 ITIs across the country. If you can see the connection here, the World Bank says you do this, and the finance minister makes a provision to set up 1,000 ITIs across the country to train the farmers, young farmers, to become industrial laborers. So the process has begun. It has been driven by some interest somewhere. And this reminds me of a story. In 1996, I happened to be at this MS Swaminathan Research Foundation in Chennai, attending a conference. There, the then chair of the CGIAR is the Conservative Group on International Agriculture Research, the body which governs the National Research Center, International Research Center, 16 International Research Centers, was a person called Ismail Sarigardin, who would be the Vice President of the World Bank. He made a statement, and I still remember, he said, the World Bank estimates that by the year 2015, this was in 1996, by the year 2015, 20 years hence, the number of people migrating from the rural to the urban areas in India will be equal to twice the combined population of UK, France and Germany. The combined population of UK, France and Germany, ladies and gentlemen, is 200 million. It has stayed at 200 million all these years. 200 million means what the World Bank had projected in 1996 was 400 million people will be migrating from the rural to urban areas in India by the year 2015. This is more than the population of America put together. Now, 400 million people I thought was a warning to India that you must correct your policies to ensure this does not take place. But if you look subsequently at the World Development Reports, ending with the 2008 World Development Report, 2008 World Development Report actually makes a suggestion to the government of India how to make that possible. How to do it now, the time is nearing that you must move 400 million people out of agriculture or rural areas into the urban centers. Now that's the path to growth. That's the economic model of development. You need to take out people from agriculture, move into the urban centers, industrial use, then only there will be economic growth. That's the model that they follow. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you will agree, 400 million people, I don't think we even understand what is 400 million. 400 million people being asked to shift over the years, let's say another 5-6 years, into the urban center means the collapse of the urban centers, and what will happen to the villages becoming empty. And then the bigger question, when he said that, Mantek Singh says that you don't have to produce food, actually he's looking beyond. He's looking beyond 2014. He knows that in the days to come, the villages have to be emptied, the food has to be produced by the corporations. So we are fast moving into a phenomena or into a stage where food is not to be produced by farmers, it has to be produced by corporations and corporates, like what's happening in America, it is now happening in India. So we have now a huge program already laid out for building up contract farming in this country. That's the first step. If you can't buy land, contract farming is the first step. You go into commercial cultivation, and that's where you have the linkages with the corporates which go into the purchase of the food. So that's the kind of paradigm that is being built by the Planning Commission. It's being suggesting to us that we must move away from that kind of agriculture now to the new phenomena that we are witnessing. Now, where does it take us to? The question is that the right model for us? The question of food security. I'm not getting into the entire debate of the National Food Security Act. You all know what is being debated, what the poverty line, how it is being defined, and so on. But as I said earlier, my hunch is that if you give a rope which is only 100 feet and you want to pull a man who is in a 200 feet deep water, you cannot ever pull out that man out of the trap. So similarly, if you lay out a poverty trap, if you cap the BPL position so that your subsidies don't go up, food subsidy bill doesn't go up, I don't think your intention is to remove hunger. The intention is, of course, to ensure that your subsidy bill comes down. Now, subsidy bill is coming down on the one hand. On the other hand, we are trying to bring down a kind of economic paradigm, which I said, if you look into land acquisition policies, if you look into all other policies that the Planning Commission is suggesting or is passing or are being routed through Planning Commission, whether it is water, whether it's pesticides, whether it's genetically modified crops, all the kinds of policies, they all go towards how to facilitate the process for the corporate takeover of agriculture. That's a phenomena which I think has been accepted by the Planning Commission. And the sad part is that it is also coming in parallel with another process of dismantling the food security plans that I call about, which have assured food security in this country all these years. Why and what I mean? The Prime Minister, addressing the 2005's full Planning Commission meeting,